welcome to Beware Spoilers. I am Adam. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be probably part one of a two-part episode about the newest entry into the Jurassic Park franchise, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Um, I've seen a lot of dislike for this movie. It's not sitting too pretty on Rotten Tomatoes. Um, it doesn't quite. All right, let me put it this way. I've seen bad Jurassic Park movies. I've seen two of them. I've seen The Lost World, and I've seen Jurassic Park 3. I've also seen really good Jurassic Park movies. I've seen Jurassic Park, and I've seen Jurassic World. This is in a weird center point for the franchise, because it's not very good, but it's also not terrible. A lot of the problems that I have with this movie aren't so much with this movie itself. It's first of all, the side characters, they buck the trend of having annoying kids and they have annoying adults, which I didn't think could be more annoying than annoying children. But guess what? The adults are infinitely more annoying than any kid previously introduced in any Jurassic Park movie. I don't know why they felt the need to have these two. They don't do anything substantial in the movie. You can probably omit them entirely and not miss too much happening. Because the guy just shrieks and the girl does nothing that you couldn't feasibly have Owen explain and do in the same thing. So largely these two characters are extraneous. And if you're gonna have characters who are going to, be there and give them a purpose that wouldn't be within character for other characters in the movie to be able to do. If you were going into this banking on seeing another great performance like Jeff Goldblum, you'll be I wouldn't say pleased because you're only in the movie for about 5 minutes, if that. This talks to Congress at the beginning and the end, kind of bookend the movie. What else is there that's worth noting? A lot of things happen here, and a lot of it feels kind of like a weird transitions for things that happen. And I think that the Jurassic Park movies as a whole would benefit from an R rating, because in order to prevent the R, they're sticking with the PG-13. In order to prevent the R, they use really weird and jumpy editing during dinosaur attacks. And if they did like Logan and just embrace the R rating, then I feel like they'd have more leeway to have better shot action sequences involving the dinosaurs. So that'd be better. I really wish that this movie didn't feel exactly like The Lost World, where the first Jurassic World felt like Jurassic Park. This one feels exactly like The Lost World. I just wish it didn't have that, because it's like it's better than The Lost World, substantially better than The Lost World. But still, it's my opinion that this franchise does its best when it's people going to an island and having to deal with dinosaurs on the island. The minute you bring the dinosaurs to the real world, it's kind of the immersion is broken for me. I don't know if that's for everyone or if that's just me who feels that way, but I feel that when you bring the dinosaurs to the real world and you have them released and interacting with people who aren't specifically going to interact with dinosaurs, like in the other movies, when you go to the island, you're going there to interact with dinosaurs. That's what you're there to do. In this, once the dinosaurs are released into the world, it feels off, because it feels like it's a decision to go toward a different route in the sequel, more than it is to make narrative sense of what would be a logical progression of this world. Because if we are to take this as a continuation of Jurassic Park, even if you omit completely The Lost World in 3 and just say the only movies that matter are Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and then this one. Those are the only three movies, because there's really not too much binding The Lost World to this movie. There's also not too much binding Jurassic Park 3 to this movie. So you can say there is a case to be made that those movies are quote unquote not canon to this movie. So if you omit those completely and go just with Jurassic Park and then Jurassic World, now this one, it feels like it's a continuation of the same philosophical argument that starts in Jurassic Park, then gets thrown out the window in favor of what's the word I'm looking for? In favor of large-scale action to build a franchise in Jurassic World, and then gets picked up immediately in this one. But it kind of feels jarring because it's not continued on with any sense of urgency toward the story. And then the minute action gets involved, the philosophical aspect of it is thrown completely out the window because it's not important. It's people aren't paying to see the philosophical movie. If they wanted to see something like that, they would go and get a cheap hard sci-fi movie, not what largely amounts to science fantasy in this movie, where it's just a what's it called? It's just a this is a survival horror movie. That's what all of them are. Which I have a feeling someone's gonna say I mischaracterize it by saying it's that, but that's what the movie is. Now what they should have done here, if it were me, and I don't like doing this because basically what I'm saying is I know better than the people who are writing the movie. I know better. That's not the case. I'm just saying, in my opinion, a better use of this movie would have been to omit the plotline of the volcano erupting altogether. Because if you ask me, the volcano erupting 3 years after Jurassic World kind of lessens Jurassic World a little bit, because the island would have had to have been evacuated anyway in 3 years' time. So you didn't have to have the park get destroyed there. Or if you wanted the park to get destroyed there, omit the volcano altogether. Because the volcano erupting adds nothing to the story except for an excuse to blow an extra $100 million in the effects budget, which you don't need to do in a movie like this, where you already have dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are enough for the effects budget. You don't need to have an exploding volcano at the same time, because when you do that, the scenes end up looking weird, because you have to obscure things, and you get a few cool shots, yeah, but if you look too closely at some of the action, you're gonna see the CGI isn't quite as good. So omit that altogether. Just send them to the island, have them get betrayed by InGen, who isn't actually called InGen in this movie. Maybe I was assuming they are. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be. But why not just... And that's the other problem, where it's like it's too similar to The Lost World, where they go there with InGen, and InGen betrays them to get the dinosaurs off the island. There's also a stark similarity, which is not an intended pun, but I'll accept the credit for it, between this and Iron Man 3, where there are narrative similarities between the arc of the villain in this, where he shows himself to be a good person, and then he's like, oh, he wants to use everyone around him as a means to an end, which is fine. That's something that's been done forever. It's just the way he acts looks a lot like Killian, and the way he's characterized is a lot like Killian, and that's not something I'm going to take points off for in either direction. But if you omitted the volcano, added nothing to the movie. The two adults added nothing to the movie that weren't Owen and Claire. Honestly, you could have brought back the two kids from the previous movie, and it would have been fine. And you wouldn't even need to... You could have had this movie take place immediately after Jurassic World with those two kids, and you wouldn't have had to worry about having to cast new people or do anything like that. I also think that the sequences that happen in the mansion are obscured in darkness too much, and for the same reason that when you look at Batman vs Superman and Justice League, the fight scenes in those are obscured in darkness, and that's because if you don't, the CGI's quality will be easier to be seen. So the scenes with them fighting the Indoraptor, which I didn't know was a crossbreed of the Indominus Rex and a raptor until I saw the movie. Like, I saw the name and I was like, what the fuck are they naming it that for? But I never really put two and two together as to why for that until they say it in the movie and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I thought it was another dumbass name like Indominus Rex. So, you could have also omitted the Indoraptor entirely. There was no need to have that be in this movie, because now you got to find a bigger and better villain, or monster, for the next movie, because they managed to raise the stakes with the Indoraptor, but you didn't need to do that here. You could have raised the stakes with a villain who was just concerned on building weapons, and you could have shown a prototype of the Indoraptor. You don't need to actually have it there, and you can show that you can just release the dinosaurs and have that happen, and have the T-Rex. Well, I mean, the T-Rex I think the T-Rex is just a bro at this point, because anytime anyone has an issue, the T-Rex shows up to help everyone. So I guess he's okay. Like, he shows up to help when that weird devil horn dinosaur thing is attacking Owen and the other two on the island while it's exploding, and it shows up again at the end and helps them. And really, you don't really need to have the T-Rex show up and solve all the problems, because it's just going to get to become the Eagles from Lord of the Rings, where you're going to have him help, and then you're going to have everyone asking, well, where's the T-Rex? Why doesn't the T-Rex do something? So I feel like a lot of things were a little heavy-handed in this movie, like the T-Rex breaking into the zoo and confronting the lion, who's the king of the jungle, versus the king of the dinosaurs. I felt like that was a little bit of a heavy-handed thing. What's it called? The girl in the movie is what I imagine every single, like, BuzzFeed blogger sees themselves in their head as, which is why she's characterized in that way in that movie, in an attempt to try and get the ratings for the movie to go higher, which evidently did not work. And her personality just got grating after a while, to the point where when she's called a nasty woman, it's just like, I mean, I get where you're going with this. I get it. I understand what this is. It doesn't need to be here. It adds nothing to the movie, and just kind of makes it kind of dates the movie a little bit when you do things like that. It's like the "What Are Those" in Black Panther, where it kind of just dates it and it sets it into a certain point. And it's something where 5 years from now, you're not going to get the joke, and it's just going to be a weird thing that happens there. So yeah. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I don't see why you shouldn't see it. Especially if you have a subscription service that hasn't got out of business yet. But I do think if you can't see it, you're not missing too much. Of course, the guest who I am anticipating having on will not feel the same way. He will wholeheartedly endorse that you go and see this movie right now, if you haven't seen it already. But I didn't see it today. It's been a month, I believe, since this movie came out. And I don't feel like I missed too much by waiting until now to see this movie. I don't feel like there was any rush or anything in this movie that warranted a rush to go see it in theaters the minute it came out. Like, there was nothing big to spoil besides the fact that the little girl in the movie is a clone, which only serves to add to the philosophical debate in the last few minutes of the movie, and it kind of resolves the entire. It serves not even as a sound resolution to the philosophical debate, but it serves as a like a okay, we're done, I win resolution to it, where it's like it in a debate over this is a hypothetical situation that we can't replicate in real life. The creation of extinct animals and bringing them back to life, and then putting them in a situation on our own where the animal is now going to be put back to being extinct. Do we have to save that animal? That's the philosophical question at the center of this movie, and it is resolved because it turns out the little girl, was a clone of the daughter of Hammond's partner, if I'm remembering correctly, and she's like, well, I was made this way too, so we should save them. And all it is it's not. It's obviously the animal should have been saved because there was no part of this that wasn't the human's fault. Especially when there's numerous ways you can move these animals to where it wouldn't be an issue. So it just, when you do something like that, I believe it doesn't solidify your argument as based in what the argument was to begin with. It's just like, okay, we're done now. The argument's over. We're doing this. And I get you have to resolve the movie, but there are better ways to do it. That would go off a lot better. Also, Wu suddenly is a mustache twirling villain, and I don't really like that too much because it goes against how he's been characterized in his previous appearances, where it's like he's a scientist working for Hammond, and then he goes and then he's working for Jurassic World because he was one of the lead engineers on the dinosaur project for Hammond, and it makes sense to go on from there. Now all of us, and then he shows like we have to, and then he starts showing we gotta continue to research, which the way I interpreted that in Jurassic World is that he's there to continue the research of Hammond, to continue exploring what you can use the dinosaurs for. But now, in this movie, he's characterized as someone who's continuing the research purely into weaponized dinosaurs, which makes him into an overarching villain. Which I don't know. I don't like how they changed the character this much. That said, I do like that this trilogy has a villain where he's kind of in the background, kind of pushing events along in the first one. The second one, he's really the one there. And now the third one, you have to resolve it by taking care of Wu. Because as long as Wu's around, this is going to be an issue. I think this is the longest I've gone on by myself about a movie. But I will have a guest on who is a little bit more in tuned about Jurassic Park and all that stuff, who will be able to better explain some of my gripes with this movie. So we'll handle that in the near future, and we'll do that in part 2. But this is part 1. So regardless of that, that's not going to take up a slot of an episode. We still have this is Wednesday's episode. So Friday we have Christopher Robin, which is going to be a new release. Then we have The Darkest Minds, which is going to be a Monday release. And then Wednesday, who knows? I'll take a look at the calendar, see what we can figure out. Probably do another older movie, and we'll see how that goes. I may bank a few episodes too if I see a Fathom event. You can let me know if you think that's a good idea or not. I think you can comment on Spreaker. If not, you can always email in 30minutereviews.com. Wow, holy crap, that's the website. It's been a long day. 30minutereviews@gmail.com. If you go through that, you can email, you can let me know what your thoughts are on using Fathom events to push along, to do banked episodes for in the event that I can't do one for whatever reason. Also, I want to go ahead and plug the site again, 30minutereviews.com. We have ad supporters on there. And if we get this podcast big enough, we can get ad supporters on the podcast. I don't have to keep redirecting people elsewhere. And we're going to go back to a more concrete release schedule, which I'll go more in depth on the next episode of this podcast, which will be on Friday when we do Christopher Robin. and I probably cry in the theater. But we'll be back with that on Friday. Good night.